Lane Kiffen abandons his playoff-bound Ole Miss Rebels. Look, it's a crazy situation with the coach leaving for a rival in the middle of the playoffs. I mean, Ole Miss is about to make the playoffs, and Lane Kiffen just gets up and leaves a day after a game, doesn't really talk to any of the players. It's an insane situation, and although it's not completely his fault due to just the timeline, the schedule, I do understand it's tricky because LSU needs an answer. But look, at the end of the day, this would be more understandable if you're coaching, Wyoming State Southern, and you get an opportunity to jump ship to LSU. It's not a rival. Your team's not in contention for the national championship. It's more understandable if you go from nothing. Your team would probably even be happy for you. They're like, yeah, our D2 playoffs. Who cares? Go get your bag. Go get that opportunity. But to go from a top 12 program to a top 5 program that's a rival in the middle of the season, it's kind of insane. And then to be poaching coaches and players, I mean, we've got to, number one, consider, should Ole Miss even make the playoffs? And it would be a travesty to keep them out. A one-loss SEC team, I mean, in a 4-team playoff, a lot of those one-loss SEC teams make it. So it would be despicable to keep them out of the playoffs. But look, they're losing a coach. They're losing coordinators. They're potentially losing players. And when FSU lost their quarterback, and look, I get it's different. FSU lost the most important player to their team. But Ole Miss, they're an 8th seed, a 9th seed, a 10th seed. They're, near the back half of that top 12. And are there more deserving teams? This year in college football, there's a lot of stacked teams. You've got 2-loss Miami. You've got 3-loss Texas. You've got a lot of good football teams. And maybe we do need to consider, especially if BYU were to win and they were to move into the playoffs. I mean, at that point, we're leaving out Miami, we leave out Vanderbilt, we leave out Texas. Maybe we could push Ole Miss out. I'm not saying I do it. Because it would definitely feel wrong. But maybe we consider it. And overall, just in terms of Lane Kiffin's decision, look, I don't really think you can have this many messy exits and not be you. Look, if this was an isolated incident, if this was the only messy exit, then it's like, okay, maybe. It's like, well, the timeline isn't really in our favor in terms of the schedule. They need a decision, and if I don't jump ship, I can't get there. It's like, okay, if this was the only instance, then maybe we could understand it. But when you've got 4 or 5 or 6 or soon to be 7 whenever the Alabama job opens up and you leave LSU, at some point we've got to look at you and be like, man, I don't really know if we can trust you. I mean, you're going to be telling athletes, I'm committed, and it's like, I mean, you're going to tell athletes, yeah, sit on the bench for 2 years, we'll start you in 3 years, and 1.5 years in, you're already gone, and that player wasted his time. It's just, it's not a good situation, and I don't really think you can trust Lane Kiffen. But from just the pure, what's a better position for him? Look, I don't think LSU makes a lot of sense for the fact that, look, everybody's got the same amount of money to spend, give or take. If you're a top 20 school, the major Big Ten schools, the major SEC schools, and a few, you got Notre Dame, which isn't really in a conference, but the top 15, 20 schools, they've all got money to spend. I mean, let's be real. Does LSU have maybe a little bit more money to spend? Sure. But if you've got an elite prospect and you go to the boosters and say, we need $5 million to purchase this player, they'll get it done. So at the end of the day, it's not really about buying players. The facilities at all these schools are amazing. I mean, Alabama's got probably the best, but at the end of the day, the facilities are all amazing. And, yeah, sure, I mean, I guess New Orleans is probably a cooler, Baton Rouge is probably a cooler place to live than Oxford. But when you're making $20 million a year, you can live in the nicest part of town regardless of where you live inside the country. And what's most important to me in terms of making this decision and why I would have stayed at Ole Miss is just general control. I mean, Ole Miss, what you've done with Ole Miss in terms of taking them from being kind of a middling of the pack SEC to one of the top contenders. You know, they're right now right below Alabama, Georgia, and LSU, and they're clearly that 14. Well, I guess Texas might be that 14, but I just think you got the keys to the castle. You can kind of do whatever you want. Now you go to LSU. There's a lot of pressure on you. You know, at Ole Miss, if you're making the playoffs every other year and you're never winning it, that's fine. You know, that's not really expected for you to win. If you go to LSU, you got to win a championship soon. I mean, with all the talent that gets infused down there, you got to win a championship soon. I mean, if we're 5 years down the road, if this contract is nearing the end and you haven't won a championship, that's just a flat-out failure. And look, with Alabama, with Georgia, with Texas, with Notre Dame, with Ohio State, I mean, it's not likely you win a championship with LSU. I think it's probably more likely than not you don't win it. So I think inevitably this is going to end up being a failure for Lane Kiffen.